I'll start off on your left. We've got Brad Dewey from Napster. Brad's the president of Napster. He oversees all international business and their mobile activities. He's held several executive positions at Roxio prior to becoming Napster, and also at People Support. Brad holds a BA in law from UC Santa Barbara and an MBA in finance and international business from University of Southern California. Next to Brad, Michael Krasner. Michael's president and founder of Oxy Systems, known for their Fling product. I'm sure he'll give us a little bit on that as we go through the discussion here. Michael has 25 years of experience in high-tech and voice-enabled solutions. He's held executive roles in several companies, which include Convergence, InTouch Systems, and BBN Hark Systems Corporation. Michael holds a PhD in electronics engineering and computing science from MIT, and he studied at Sloan School of Management at Harvard. Next up, to him we have Alex Kanakaris. Now, Alex is the founder and chairman of Wi-Fi TV Incorporated. They provide about 450 live channels, or live TV stations. And interesting, doing a Google search on Alex, it certainly takes you back to a lot of the originations of the internet. He's certainly been involved in a lot of breaking activity that has brought it to what it is today. He's also the author of a book called Signs of Intelligent Life on the Internet. So welcome, Alex. And to Alex's left, our panelist, Robert Gourdin. Robert is the Director of Marketing and Business Development for Navtech. Navtech provide a lot of the technology behind digital mapping systems, navigation, and so forth. He's got extensive experience in the telecom technology sector. He's worked at One Point Communications, Ameritech, which is now SBC, and also at Motorola. Robert holds a BA in electronics from UC Irvine and an MBA from Indiana University's Kelley School of Business. So I think you'll agree, we've got quite an interesting group up here. We're going to try to define convergence, and contrary to what the previous slide said on the other panel, this is the defining convergence panel. So we'll talk that through. But first of all, we're going to take this through kind of the format of what's happened in the past, what's brought us to today, what's happening today, and then we'll do the crystal ball thing. We'll kind of look into the future towards the end. Hopefully, we'll have some time for questions at the end. But one thing I do know. Convergence is changing constantly. There are no certainties. There is one certainty, though. We currently sit between you and lunch, so we're going to try and get a good inspirational conversation going and get you out of here at 12:30 for lunch. Okay, so to start off, the convergence has been happening for the longest time. It's kind of like the slow train coming. You know, myself, I've been attending the NAB conference in Las Vegas since the mid-90s. And on my first conference there, everyone was saying, this is the year of convergence. And the next year I go back and they're saying, this is the year of convergence. And it was happening on and on, for year after year after year. The technology was there. The capability was there to do what we would like to think of as convergence. But it hasn't really happened until just recently. I don't think there's any dispute that we are in a very converged world now. So the question to the panel to start off with is, why do you think it's taken that long for convergence to really happen? And what's the secret sauce that makes it work? So I'll start off with Brad.
All right. Well, I'd say we actually had one form of a converged network, but it was a sneaker network. And that was when it was basically the world of the CD. And we were doing CD burning software, so we looked at it at that time. But basically, you could have your media, and it would play in your car, it would play in your home stereo, it would play on your portable CD player, and it would play in your friend's device. So you could do all that, but you had to walk it around. But it worked. It was reliable, pretty inefficient, and pretty expensive. You'd buy a CD for $50 for maybe one or two good songs. So things progressed. Then people started doing mixed CDs, still worked in the network. But I really think things opened up with Napster in '99. And Sean Fanning put a little piece of software there, and basically everybody now had the world of music at their fingertips, and it was instantaneous and free. But the issue was Sean didn't have any of the rights. So I think now what we've been trying to do, and we've been at this for now 8 years, but since Sean's first run at it, and it's taken a while. So to get the rights, you needed to put some DRM on there. To put some DRM in there, that means the devices then had to support it, not just the portable devices, but PCs and now mobile phones. And to get the DRM in there, that took a while. And then we tried to do new models with the labels for unlimited access. That took a while. So I think, we still have a ways to go. Personally, when you look at the living room, I think that still remains as one of the challenging points. There's some great devices, Sonos and some D-Link and some other devices out there. But to set those up, if anybody here has done it, you're pulling your rack out and hooking it up. There's still a lot of pain points. And on the mobile phones, we now, we'll have 100 million phones shipped this year that work with Napster to go. But to specifically identify which one for you easily by the carrier and what you can get on there is difficult. I'd say it's evolving. We've got a ways to go. There's a whole lot of collaboration that's needed and some education as well for the consumers to make it really simple to, our goal is unlimited access to the world of music anytime, anywhere for a flat monthly fee. But those are just some of the pain points we felt.
So it hasn't been an easy road by any means.
No, and the iPod and that closed system has been our biggest pain point over the last 3 years.
Right. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, let me. I think I agree with what Brad said, and his last statement was actually a very good definition of convergence: the anywhere, anytime, being able to move between devices and the media, just going between that. The question of why it's taken so long, I think, as he said, a lot of the applications were there, and applications with a lot of high value to the user, and yet still people weren't using them, and what is in the way. And I think some of that is the user hurdles, as he mentioned. And, so extending on what he said to where we are today, in the land of mobile, a lot of the user hurdles have to do with pieces of interoperability, building user interfaces that work, having it on enough different devices so that you and your friends, or all, even though you're using completely different phones or different carriers, you all can be using it and sharing things like that. A lot of those things, the cost of mobile data. So when you look at it, it isn't so much that the applications are there, the desires, people want to do it, and yet it's just too hard in lots of ways. And you say, oh, I have to buy this plan, I have to download this thing, if I have this device, I have to change it around and do something different. And the complexity is such that it's not there yet for applications. And that makes it harder for the user, because in the end, we all have to work for the user and make the user happy and able to use it.
Mm-hmm. Alex?
Well, I think there's a clear reason why it took so long to get here, and there's a clear reason why we got here at all. I really want to compliment Napster, everything that they've done all along, because if it weren't for Napster, the music really, actually, if you had to pick out one company, the music revolution and delivery wouldn't have occurred. And for every Napster, you have others that maybe haven't had quite the impact, but have been on that same wavelength of, here is a young generation of an audience that is waiting for the next Beatles, the next Elvis, the next evolution from a 78 to a 45 to a 33 to a cassette to a CD, or some combination of talent and content, because things were really going to fall asleep and die in the music industry. And these innovative leaders came along and created a new medium, and that's phenomenal. Right here in Universal City and right around this is the reason why it isn't further, and why it never would have got here to begin with. Because the people that sit up here in these towers have been opposed every step of the way to everything that's ever come along, whether it be for music or movies, to bring us forward. And the example, Brad mentioned the CD is a good example. Before that, the VHS, believe it or not, before the DVD, some of us on the panel are old enough to remember those, but the movie industry 100% completely opposed the home video revolution. I had the honor of working for a guy called George Atkinson. He passed away last year, but he created the entire concept of taking the movie and making it available on a rental basis in video stores. And he had 600 stores called Video Station before Blockbuster was invented. A case went to the Supreme Court. It's called the right of first sale doctrine. pitted everybody here in the big offices against the consumers, the video stores, and the makers of the VCRs. It all had to do with, as it does with music, with copyrights and laws, but what it really had to do with was the empowerment of individual people to be able to bring entertainment into their homes and be able to use it at a time and in a way that they wanted. That was a historic Supreme Court case. It made it possible for the home video revolution. It paved the way for what happened with Napster. And then real quick to switch subjects and pick up on a great point that my colleague to the right made, the integration and the design of the facilities to bring the convergent have been at a complete miss as opposed to the technology. The technology's been phenomenal. I think part of it has been that whereas the technological design has been great, the human interface hasn't been there. That's why Apple is such a great company. That's why the iPhone will have such an impact when it comes out on June 11th or June 14th when it comes out. Because in one design of a look at what the iPhone's supposed to look like versus every phone that's out on the market today, you can see convergence, which you can't see with the other things. I've got phones where, you know, this side I can listen to music. If I turn it over and pull it out sideways, I can maybe make a phone call. It's ridiculous. So those are a couple of thoughts.
Boy. I don't know, as the dumb map guy, I'll give you a different take on it, because I was talking to Trent earlier, and I think the whole context of convergence is confusing anyway. Right? You talk to 5 different people, they have 5 different perspectives of what that is. Now, in our general perspective, is there are really 2 types of convergence. There is what I call the functional, and then there's device convergence. And device simply means that you get the Swiss Army knife of devices, which is a lot more complex than it sounds initially. But I would argue that the whole concept of functional convergence, where you can actually leverage content across different platforms, is already happening. It's just not happening in entertainment. The example I would use is, again, I'm in the location business, right? And you can more or less go into MapQuest, go into Google, right, and get directions, right? You can move in your car and use the navigation system in your car and get directions, right? You can go to Best Buy and buy a portable navigation system and get directions. Right? You can get on your mobile phone and get directions. Right? You're getting a very similar experience across multiple different platforms. And I swear, this exact same conversation, I heard this 5 years ago when we were talking about location-based services. It's just incredible how these conversations continue to repeat themselves.
Okay.
I would add just one other thing too. When you mention it's not happening here, I think we have to remember this is the U.S. and our networks aren't as advanced right now. They're rolling out, but this is happening. If you look to Japan, I mean, they pay their bills. They can buy things in the store right off of their phone, using their phone as a credit card. Everybody uses the mobile phone as their primary device. They're not as PC-centric. They're actually on their next generation of 3G. They've already had 3G for years. So, when we look at where we roll things out, we've worked very closely with Docomo in Japan, and we are bringing this unlimited music anytime, anywhere later this month. And so it's one of those, their networks are ready. In the US, the good news is if you're on AT&T, you start seeing 3G more often as you roam around. Some of the other carriers are rolling it out here. In Europe, more advanced. So when we say it's not happening, I think you have to look at where in the world what we're talking about. And then the devices are getting so much better. And there's so many exciting devices out there. And so it's all coming together. But when one company can do it all and control it all, and you can move a lot faster, but ultimately I think you lose. When everybody can come together, it takes a lot longer, but I think that's the ultimate situation that wins.
Okay, thanks. What I'm hearing here is that this is happening at different paces in different regions or geographies in the world. Mike, you and I had a conversation prior to the panel here. I spent the last 10 years in the European market. You're doing a lot of your work over there. So there are things that are perhaps advancing more in the European market, but is it a technology thing? Is it a cultural thing? What's driving that?
It's a combination of all of those. It's coming both from the user side. The users are more sophisticated, more mature, more willing to do things on their mobile phone than they are in the US. Some of that is the evolution that lots of people, their first getting on the internet in Europe was through a mobile phone. They don't many PCs. So there's lots of issues that you can talk about, we won't go into here, but the users, they were the first, the ringtone market started there, right? SMS texting started there. Because of the interoperability of the networks, it was a lot easier. On the carrier side, frankly, the carriers are a lot more advanced. The networks are more advanced here in the US. People are still arguing, and the competition is about dropped calls and coverage. And Europeans look at this and say, why are you talking about that? You mean you don't have coverage everywhere? Your calls actually drop? You can't drive from Paris to Marseille and have a conversation the entire time, whether it's in your car or on the train? What's wrong with you? Right? So the networks are a lot more advanced. The way they think about it is more advanced, and especially for a lot of what we're talking about, the way they think about mobile data is different. Here, mobile data is, oh, do we have the spectrum? What if people actually used mobile data applications? It will cost us too much money and swamp our networks. And European carriers look at it and say, well, we rolled out 3G, we have a lot of capacity, and people aren't using it. It would be a wonderful thing if everybody used it and we ran out of capacity. But they know that if they start promoting applications now, then 2 years from now, when there really are a lot of people using it, they're on the next generation like they are in Japan. So their costs of moving mobile data have dropped by a factor of 5, and their capacities have increased by a factor of 5. So they look ahead, and in the US, maybe there isn't quite as much of that competition.
Okay, so
Can I add a point to that? 'Cause I think, and we're in Europe quite extensively too, but I think one of the other big factors though is just the way carriers manage content distribution in Europe and North America. Right? North America, carriers pretty much have a stranglehold on the distribution of content. In Europe, if Nokia woke up on Monday morning and decided they wanted to put up their own site and distribute music, they could do it and get away with it. And they have, right? They do that here, they will never sell another phone Verizon again in their lifetime. So you've got a whole different business model there as well too. Here the carriers care about everything that goes through that pipe and they want to control it. In Europe, they at this point anyway, they really don't. Not to the same extent anyway.
Okay, I heard that it's cultural, I heard that there are some technology and coverage issues, but I didn't hear anything about a business model. I find that interesting. We're not going to go into that. I want to move on to the next question here, because we've been talking about carriers a little bit here. A lot of the carriers are going into the triple play or the quadruple play. We're seeing a lot of deals being done. We're seeing where, for example, announcements being made around different organizations that are having that infamous triple or quadruple play. But who is going to? Where's this going? Do we see content providers moving into that space? Because Disney is working with an MVNO, obviously, but that's a mobile play. Fox has many different entities that are covering distribution. Do we see that? Who else do we see playing in the convergent market there, specifically on the triple play, quadruple play?
Well, you didn't say Google, right? Because I think it's been overused, right? But this is what keeps us up at night, because Google is, and for all practical purposes now, they're a content player, they're a media company, right? And they're slowly moving up their value chain and aggregate more and more media, obviously, but also leveraging ways to distribute the content themselves and get around the carriers. So when you talk about models, business models, I think that is probably the biggest threat to the current carrier stranglehold of you the end consumer at this point.
I think there's actually two battles going on. One is, call it the actual network and that integration of the three screens, and then the content flow. So from a network perspective, the telcos are going after the cable company and satellite, and you see some great successes coming from AT&T, where you can now get your home television, you can get wireless and your home phone and your PC all on one bill. But what realizing is there's got to be a value proposition besides just, hey, we could put it all on one piece of paper for you. So what they're doing is now looking at the services element, and that's where, all the companies, Napster's one, but you mentioned Disney, Fox, everybody's now saying, okay, how do we play on the PC? How do we play on the television? How do we play on mobile? So for Napster, we've been on the PC. We're now on mobile. We've talked about video coming, which can get us to the TV. We have experiences on these devices in your room room, the media adapters and that. So each content provider, whether it's a service like Napster, is looking at a 3-screen strategy, and then you actually have the network providers looking at a 3-screen strategy. And I think the first phase is partnerships coming together. So, you know, one thing that we did, just one example, is if you sign up for 2 AT&T services, so broadband and wireless, you get a year of Napster free. So I think it's really about the content aspect and a greater value proposition than a bill. But I think a lot of folks in the room are chipping away at this 3-screen strategy and have great value propositions. But it's really integrating all that, again, besides just a common bill.
Okay, so while we're on this then, Brad, let's talk a little bit about Napster and NTT Docomo, some of the activity going on there. We're seeing it with Real Networks, Vodafone. There's a lot of these agreements that are happening. What's driving them?
Well, I'd say there's two main elements, and a bit of history here. If you look back 3 years ago when we first started talking to the mobile carriers, 2 things were happening. One is there were some very big statements made by some European carriers in particular that basically said not only are they going to own music, they're going to be the next label, they're going to dominate it, and it's all going to be their brand. And so they tried to go with their own brand, their own service, and they hit a dead end. They paid billions for the network and didn't really get take-up of the services. The other piece, when we first talked to them 3 years ago, many folks didn't want to hear one thing about the PC, the living room. It was all about just the island of the mobile phone. That's all they wanted to talk about. And so it was about how do they acquire content just on that platform and even reacquire content. So what happened is many carriers went with their own strategy. They were, many of them are former monopolies, so they said, hey, multi-billion-dollar opportunity, we're going to do it all ourselves. Now you're seeing a major shift, and Docomo will say, they focus on being a platform for other content providers to come on. And they want to bring the big brands that have an integrated offering cross-platform. So I think what you're seeing is Rhapsody signing with Vodafone, us with Docomo and AT&T, that now the carriers, many of them are shifting and saying the consumer needs to integrate mobile with their PC and living room, and they want a brand that's instantly recognizable for its segment. So whether it's ESPN for sports, Napster, digital music, or MySpace for social networking, or Google for search, any of these, they want the big brands there, and so they're becoming platforms with the big brands. So I'd say those are 2 big trends that are now changing and embracing the PC, embracing brands. That's what we're seeing change, and that's why a lot of carriers are signing up with us now.
Okay. Anyone else want to take a stab at that one? All right. Let's move on. We were talking a little bit about some of the deals done, and we've seen how, especially in the past, the internet started out to be free for most part. And then we brought in this thing called DRM, hoping to put a monetary factor in there where we could profit from a lot of the content flowing across the internet. Then we've had recent announcements by EMI with Apple iTunes saying, you know what, we don't see a future for DRM on the music side. Where is this going? And Alex, if you maybe want to start us off on that.
I've been a real proponent from like about 10 years of trying to get things as freely accessible on the internet. But I think that answer to the question is, look, the great thing about the internet ultimately, and as the Napster has evolved, this is a good example of it, is to dramatically increase the size of the audience. And then once that audience has been dramatically increased in size, absolutely monetize it just as you always would have before in a new fashion. So it doesn't matter whether there's DRM on the songs or not. What matters is that the artist will get paid and that there's a way to bring in the money. And when you do the math, do you get more money by not having the DRM on it or the other way around? Most people take a look at it and they immediately have a knee-jerk reaction. If it doesn't have DRM, everybody's going to get screwed, nobody's going to get paid, etc. They totally miss the big picture, that if you keep putting on these barriers, and especially it was mentioned earlier in the conversation, Brad mentioned even trying to hook stuff up in your home. He's probably a fairly sophisticated guy, doing this stuff compared to a lot of people, but it isn't that easy. And the point of the matter is, that's the problem with all this DRM stuff. I'm somewhat of an audiophile. I like to record everything and listen to it very intensely and get it in the best quality sound and all that. Everything with video and audio that's related to digital rights management's only done one thing. It's totally, I want to not swear, but it's screwed up the and audio sound quality whenever you try to do anything with it. And so ultimately, it doesn't really matter so much about the DRM. What really just matters is how is the creator of the content going to be able to participate. I'll go back and then I'll have to leave these guys around here in Hollywood alone. But for years and years
Please feel
and
free to
years,
express your opinion, Alex.
but here's what happened. Every artist in the world, including the Beatles, got ripped off so bad it's not even funny. When Brian Epstein died, I think we were getting about 7 cents, maybe maximum, per every Beatles album that was sold. There was no DRM issues, you know, everything. I'm sure they were being careful. The albums weren't being bootlegged and everything like that. The artist was getting almost nothing. And what's great about the internet, whether it be music or movies or television, what Wi-Fi TV, wi-fitv.com, we're very much involved in, is this audience has grown exponentially. And there's about 100,000 different ways that the creators of the content can make more money than they ever would have made with all the DRM and industry safeguards in the world. But the power shifted, and that's really what's killing everybody and what the real issues are regarding the DRM. The truth of the matter is that the old-fashioned record companies and movie companies won't have the same power and control over the artists they used to have. But it doesn't mean they can't make more money, and it definitely doesn't mean the artists can't make more money. So to try to wrap up that answer, that's a non-issue. Issue is let's get as much content out to as many people as possible. When that happens, there'll be 115 different ways to properly collect the money and also to actually get more of it to the creators than happened before.
Way out of my lane.
Good. Well said,
I'll just
Alex.
add a comment. Yeah, I think the way DRM has been implemented, I mean, the concept makes sense, but the way it's been implemented, it just presents a real roadblock for users, and that's the problem. Users look at it, oh, you mean I bought this and now I can't do what I want with it? And when you say, if you say, oh, but you really can't make a dozen copies and give it out to all your friends, they say, oh, I guess that makes sense, but they want to at least be able to use it themselves on all the different devices and whatever, because they bought it, and maybe they're being a little naive, but they thought that they bought it. When DRM goes away, and I think it is going to go away in the most part, it will actually increase sales, because I think that when people look at, should I buy this, and they look at it and say, what, if I buy it, it has all this DRM, and it actually makes it hard for me to use, I'm willing to spend the money, but if I get it from a friend that ripped it from a CD or whatever, then I can do really what I want. So I think that it is backfired from what the real intention was. There certainly are business models like, Napster has for when they have subscription services and such, and how to deal with subscription services. You need some kind of DRM type protection when you have, here, take any of our 3 million songs or whatever. Those will work themselves out, how to do that properly. But in general, when you buy something, DRM is going to have to go away. And I think it started, and there's no turning back now.
Okay, so fair enough. Then
Can I comment on that? Yeah, just a little bit on that. What I mentioned is when we secured all the rights from all the majors and hundreds of indies, you had a requirement by the majors that you had to put DRM in order to even sell it. Okay. And what has resulted is there wasn't one standard for DRM. So Apple took one path, didn't license to anybody, everybody else took another path, and now we have this not so fun world of incompatibility. So many people connect their iPods to Napster and say, why can't I use it? And it's a natural question. What's now happening is, I think for purchased tracks, DRM will go away. And the restrictions to date, I don't think have made much sense of, there was a good intent, I guess, from a label side of, we don't want CD, every kid that buys a song to just, print out millions of copies, but that wasn't really happening anyways. So they said, okay, we won't put any limits, and I think it's going to go MP3, clear text on purchased tracks. So then where does DRM play? We look at DRM as an enabler. So if we were to offer everybody 3 million songs, it would cost you $3 million, right, at 99 cents a track. So instead, with subscription, for the price of a CD a month, you can get unlimited access on literally 3 PCs, 3 phones in your living room. So in that case, DRM gives you a benefit. And so I think for subscription, it'll have to continue. Otherwise, people will sign up 1 month, download all 3 million, and cancel, and that'll be a pretty rough model. model. So I think that's where we'll see DRM. No DRM on purchase tracks, some DRM on subscription. And the nice part is the timing of this is coming when most of the phones that are being shipped will now support the DRMs, either at a chip level or a software layer. So it'll be out of the box for the consumer and not quite the pain points of the past.
Okay, so yesterday on a panel we saw Universal Music say that, sales of physical goods continue to decline. No surprise there. So they are now actively out there saying, look, we're entertaining all types of revenue that could come from music products. So ringtones, ringback tones, anything that would be in perhaps a Universal Music catalog. So then let's talk a little bit about what the music product, specifically a mobile music product, could be. Because we see that right now at the stage of the market, it's typically an early adopters market. Early adopters tend to be the type of people that, will accept point solutions without a whole fully integrated package here. But today's consumer is a bit more sophisticated. They're saying, no, I want it all. I want it anytime, anywhere, anyhow, okay? So what do we see as the mobile music product coming out? Mike, I'm going to ask you to start off on this.
This certainly we understand this. We built our Fling product, and it really was more of you have all your music sitting on your PC, because that's where you manage your music. You don't manage it on your mobile phone. So we wanted to let people from their mobile phone have access to all that music instantly, all the podcasts you just downloaded, no syncing. It's just available because, after all, a mobile phone is mobile, it's networked. So we just use the mobile data network. The feedback from users, and perhaps I say they've been spoiled by what they can do on the PC, is just playing music is not enough. We want the next generation. I mean, I should be able to do more, and especially since you're telling me this is networked. So I want to be able to see what my friends are playing, talk to my friends about music, see what's hot, get some offers on, if I like the Beatles, I should, and if there's a concert by the Beatles coming up, should be able to get discount tickets or something like that. So the kind of thing that all these things together, combination of advertising and sponsorship and connect to a store to, oh, everybody's playing this new hot song, can I listen to it, and if I like it, I want to buy it, right? I want to buy the song, maybe I also want to buy the ringtone. So the integration of these pieces together, the users are sophisticated and say, hey, I want all of this. This isn't just about downloading a song and getting to play it on my phone. That's not of where I want to be.
Yeah, that's interesting, 'cause I'm going to take a different tack. I want to extend on that too. Again, it's all about location with us as well, right? So you just mentioned something about downloading music, right? And then you hear the track, you like the track, and you want to understand whether the band you just heard, where they happen to be playing and when, right? So I'm talking more about an more integrated experience where you take what exists, you overlay location onto it, some intelligence onto it, and create an entire experience with entirely new value proposition. I think that's where entertainment longer term is going, right? Everything you do, games, social networking, anything that exists out there will exist out there. If you overlay location onto it, you change the entire nature and context, but you also make it a lot stickier for group type networking.
Other comments?
Yeah. I'd say right now there's two aspects of music on the mobile, and I'll touch on them briefly and then show how we're trying to bring them together. So one is just now your phone is your MP3 player. My phone right here, it's basically a sync from $29 now, right? 2 gig card in there, so I can connect it to my PC and put unlimited amounts of music on there. I can change it every day as part of my subscription. So, or if I buy tracks, I can put them on there. So that's one part of the mobile experience right now. And as I mentioned, our biggest pain point's been the iPod. Doesn't work with Napster, closed system. Now, 1 billion is basically shipping this year, and 100 million that work with Napster to go. The next piece that we worked on was literally trying to say, well, can you access it directly from your phone without a PC? And so that's what Napster Mobile's about. So basically 3 million songs in your pocket, you can log on and search the catalog, get a sample, and you can currently buy. But when you buy, downloads wirelessly to your phone and a copy sent to your PC. So now what we're doing is bringing them together, and we're bringing them together in two ways. One is, if I buy a track, I should be able to actually get a copy to my PC, like I said, but I should also be able to bookmark it on the PC. It should automatically download, all of that. And then the other piece is, why do I have to buy it? Can it just be part of my subscription? And that's what we're doing. So now, for a flat fee, literally unlimited sideloading or unlimited over the air. And that's what we're doing in Japan this month. So I can download literally hundreds of songs each month over the air or to my PC. I no longer have to connect once a month to renew the license. It's there. And then the final piece is, previously, for those of you who acquired content on a carrier deck, if you wanted a wallpaper, you go in the wallpaper deck. If you want a ringtone, you go into a different deck. And then there was another area for songs. What we've done in Napster Mobile is bring ringtones, true tones, wallpapers, artist bios, ratings by friends, send to a friend, everything you want to do with music into one music application. So you're not flipping around to different decks. So now that's really why we say it's unlimited access, so for your flat fee, and then anytime, anywhere. You could bring it down over the air or to your PC, whichever you like. And then the final piece is, maybe each of you aren't willing to spend $15 a month for just your music consumption, but if you look at it as a family plan, 3 PCs, 3 phones, $15 a month for the whole family on your phones, PCs, and living rooms, that's what we're offering. So that's evolved, and it's at different levels. So it's singular. We don't yet have OTA. They've said publicly it's on their roadmap. In Japan, we have the whole works, and in Europe, it's at different phases depending on the carrier.
So the product then becomes more of, it's service, if you look at it, it's more of a lifestyle then.
Right.
Okay, so interesting now.
And it doesn't matter as much about the platform.
Right.
And in Europe, for example, we're actually going into countries on the phone without the PC. In many countries, the closest one to look at is Mexico. If you look at their infrastructure, fixed line is not so good. Everybody there has a mobile phone. And so now when you look at entering that country, we entered Portugal as a similar situation. We came in on the mobile platform. They recognized the brand, 3 million songs, and basically we went in, and many of them have 3G already. So we went in on the mobile platform without even the need for the PC. I think sometimes in the US we think of convergence or evolution going from the PC to then the mobile. In countries, it might be the mobile and the mobile only, or maybe eventually getting to the PC.
Okay, so it started off as a product, I guess, from vinyl to cassette to CD, and now it's more into a service, into a lifestyle.
Right.
Interesting on the product side. My son, 8-year-old son, went with his school group to a museum a couple weeks back, and he came home and he said, "Dad," he said, "you wouldn't believe it. They had a CD that was black, that was that size, and you could play it on both sides." He thought this was amazing. So I guess it perhaps dates me as well. So that was in a museum. So now our conversation has been mostly around music and entertainment products in the area of convergence. There's a school of thought out there that says, you know what, that's the tip of the iceberg. We're going to see a lot of revenue generated, a lot of businesses springing up around convergence that has nothing to do with entertainment. And I'd like to get the panel's opinion on that, and I want to start on the far end with you, Robert.
Yeah, because we're already springing up. And that's why when I said earlier, I said this whole conversation reminds me of this whole LBS conversation 5 years ago. Where you had, if I threw a quarter on the floor, I'd have 65 companies chasing the quarter, and only one would come away with it. But we're seeing, especially on the mobile front, and we're seeing like this entire like raft of different types of services, all that leverage location, that I really have one thing in common, right? They're all designed to take one subscriber and create 10, right? And the thing that we talk to carriers directly, and the thing they keep asking us is, bring us something, bring us a solution that's going to allow us to extend our subscriber base just by capturing or marketing to one subscriber. So this whole idea of social networking, I heard it a lot here this week. It's exciting, but again, remember, there are 125 million GPS phones out there, right? And the folks you want to sell to want to be able to leverage location in anything they do and across their portfolios.
Anyone else?
Yeah, indulge me for 90 seconds. I just talk a little bit about television and the integration. Incidentally, I'm buying every one of those Napster services that he mentioned, so now I get to take 90 seconds and promote Wi-Fi TV. And when you go there, it's wi-fitv.com. The memberships are free, but the bigger point is television. What we've been able to do just even over the last 6 months, and our company's been around for 10 years. We did the first full-length movie online in December of 1995. kinds of things, first wireless movie delivery into including cell phones going back several years ago. Right now we have about 450 live TV stations from all around the world that you can watch all for free anywhere you have a better than a dial-up connection on the internet on any device that can get a picture anywhere in the world. And on a business model, which I know our moderators asked about a couple of times, this enables us to now sell any business person, real estate agent, car dealer, church, charity, anybody that remotely would be interested in owning a television station. We're selling them a Wi-Fi TV station. It's $25,000, $5,000 a year thereafter. And we can tell them that when their station launches, anybody in the world with a better than dial-up internet connection can watch their TV station 24/7. But in addition, anybody that's watching that station can text message with anybody else watching the same program. In addition, obviously, on-demand videos and downloadable videos. We really have a long way to go, especially to now start to deliver these stations cellularly and so forth. But it's a phenomenal change in the way that TV gets created, because now anybody can create the content. Doesn't mean that the old creators of content can't have some of the best content, but it does mean that everybody's been liberated and they can create the content. On Wi-Fi TV, we can break it down between countries and so forth, and you can really have that online community, people getting together. So just sort of jumping to a conclusion, we've talked about where we've been, the evolution up till now, where are we going? This is so unbelievably, people say something's exciting, but let's watch over the next 3 years, because think about it, if you're in a schoolroom, in a workplace, traveling, on an airplane, in a car, I love cars, in a boat, wherever you are, in a much more mobile fashion, you'll communicate by voice, by video, by text message. You'll be able to listen in high quality sound. You'll be able to create. You'll be able to integrate with other people. And really this goes, it's a great business, but it goes beyond a business because it totally breaks down geographic, religious, and political barriers. We saw that on Wi-Fi TV this past New Year when we had people in Russia, China, and the United States all celebrating the New Year together, being able to see and hear each other. And with that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Brilliant. What we'll do, sorry.
If I can mention, well, I think one of the best apps on the killer apps is the business side is email. And between the BlackBerry and the smartphones out there, I mean, those have changed my life. I remember, if you guys remember, about 4 years ago, if you flew to this conference or one like it, you'd spend 2 hours, okay, syncing your email in the hotel room on a low bandwidth PC, and it was brutal. And suddenly, you know, your killer app is, oh my gosh, I can do email. And then when you had to sync your contacts and all the extra software, it didn't work so well. Now it's like you create a contact, it's in the sky, it's there, everything's integrated. So I think there's many more killer apps on the business side of things. And you know, the other one that I'd say is, we talked about social networking or something. I think one of the greatest things, I don't know what you call it, invention or not, is the name tag. I wish people wore name tags all the time. When people do, people are easier with the names, everybody's communicating. And so if through the location and through the smart capabilities and contacts and all that, when you walk up, you immediately know their name, what company, maybe the responsibility ties in your contact. I think there's a whole world that's going to explode there. But the business side, and then from the mobile itself, location is one of its killer differentiators over the other platforms. And so I think there's all sorts of ways to tie into that, and it's an exciting time.
Okay, great. So, Alex, Brad, you brought us into the last question just before we open it up to the floor for questions. 30 seconds each. What's the crystal ball? Give us Convergence 15, 20 years out.
I think the network's invisible, and there's many networks, and instead of worrying about your minutes and time and which network, you seamlessly connect, and it's basically unlimited access to music, unlimited access to all movies, unlimited access to basically any you can connect, but it's done easily. So that'd be my crystal ball.
Mike?
I'll take a different point of view on answering this rather than the application, because I think there'll be lots of applications, including things that we have no clue on right now. But some of the enablers, I think LBS will be a big enabler for the applications. As we start thinking more about user interfaces, voice control will become very, very big. So And those enablers will change the range of applications and the complexity of applications to make it simple for users.
Yeah, I agree. I think simpler devices, including the voice recognition and integration is a good point, but simpler devices, more locations, and then because of the simpler devices and more locations, the next generation of content. Because all of the reality TV shows and the YouTube videos and everything else are fine. I think they will, however, evolve into the roots for the next entertainment revolution and information revolution.
Yeah, well, the carrier walled garden will fall, and to me, as the guy in my garage, will be a content distributor. It'll just democratize the content distribution and make anybody and everybody a distributor.
Brilliant. Questions, anyone, before we break?
Couple on
Sorry,
the screen.
where were they?
Screen.
Oh, pardon me. Okay, what have we got? First question, why should we really care about convergence in mobile? I am mobile, okay, it's instant messaging and mobile. What's wrong with devices tuned specifically, tuned to specific needs, such as the iPod? Thoughts on that?
I don't think there's a single answer. I think if you look at cameras, I have a camera in my phone, but I also have a shoot and I also have a high-end camera. So I think there's not a single answer. I love converged device. Both of these are converged devices that I carry, but I carry two of them because one is not kind of the ultimate device yet. So I think everybody will be different. You'll want certain things converged, and if you have a special need or interest in one, you'll get that special device, maybe for video or the other. But I'll let someone else try that one.
Okay, unfortunately, Mike has to leave us here. If anyone has questions for him, please bring them. I'll make sure he contacts you at a later time. So next question.
You want to take that one?
How much of this is constrained by learned behavior? So consumers have learned to consume media in specific ways and are less likely to change. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a different take, but I heard this 3 years ago when MapQuest, right, internet, the directions, this stuff's free. Why would anybody ever pay for it? Right? The reason people pay for it is because the experience they get on a mobile device, and hopefully it's better. But it's virtually impossible to take the experience from a desktop and move the exact same experience to mobile and expect folks to pay for it. So there's got to be an extra added value, an extra added utility to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I'd also say the nice thing is we're not dealing with one age group forever, but my sons, when we go to dinner and we're waiting in line, they ask, "Can I have your phone to play a game?" So the new learned behaviors are totally different when they're not constrained by their past platform or PC centricity. It's like this is their game device, this is the picture. When my littlest, he's almost turning 4, whenever we take a picture, he immediately said, "I want to see it, I want to see it." And so, we remember back in the days dropping it off with a photo mat. We thought that was pretty high tech. Now it's like instant gratification, and you want to share it as well, not just see it.
Okay, final comments from anyone? All right, big hand for the panel. So I believe lunch is ready, is that right? Please come back after lunch. We've got discussion with Tammy Robinson of Verizon Wireless. Should be interesting.
I think this whole Wi-Fi TV, I think this is really interesting. Hi. I think this is absolutely fascinating. TK. Yeah, we may have to talk to you too. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're certainly welcome.
Sure.
Check out.
Yeah, I have heard of it.
Wait.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're doing anything right now in the wireless space.
Hi. How are you?
Great.
Customers are pretty much all cable operators and telcos. But we're looking into what's going to happen in terms of video streaming.
So what do you?
Wholesaler, wireless, WiMAX.
For sure.